Why is the British Prime Minister conducting the Brexit negotiations as if he wanted to hit them against a wall? Insiders assume that Johnson has a clever plan. He's waiting for US election winner, Trump, to close a deal with him. He then wants a hard Brexit with the EU. Is Boris Johnson playing on time on Brexit to wait for the US election result? With Biden as president, who referred to Johnson as a physical and emotional Trump clone, things would be uncomfortable for Johnson. According to a newspaper report, the US election campaign is also influencing the Brexit negotiations. British Prime Minister Johnson has now refused to make talks dependent on who will sit in the White House. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has denied claims that he would delay negotiations on a Brexit trade pact with the EU until the US elections. President Donald Trump is considered a Brexit supporter and described the EU exit as a wonderful, wonderful thing. His Democratic challenger Joe Biden, however, is more attached to the European Union. The speculation that he would only announce a possible no-deal Brexit if Trump were to become president again, well, is still there that Johnson will do that. But Johnson said on Monday, these are two very different things. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is not making negotiations on a Brexit trade pact dependent on the US presidential election. The Observer reported at the weekend that Johnson was delaying negotiations to await the outcome of the US election. Accordingly, he would only announce a possible no-deal Brexit if Donald Trump became president again. As I said, Trump is considered a Brexit supporter, and if he wins the election, Johnson would immediately conclude a trade deal between the US and Great Britain, according to the report. Trump's rival in the November 3rd election, Joe Biden, is, as I said, more fond of the European Union, and that, well, if you look at it objectively, there is some sense behind this idea. And Biden is happy that both sides are back at the same table in the Brexit negotiations. And Boris Johnson said, we'll see what the talks bring. He told journalists that during a visit to the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading, west of London. The fact is, however, that if Trump were re-elected, Johnson would get a tall win for his Brexit course. If necessary, a no-deal Brexit. The US president has come out several times as a fan of Brexit and promised the British a phenomenal trade deal with the US, and Biden, on the other hand, was critical of Johnson's plan to exit the EU at all. He made it clear in September. If he's elected and the UK endangers peace between Ireland and Northern Ireland with its Brexit plans, there will be no trade deal with the USA. In addition, Johnson and Trump got along very well at their previous meetings and referred to each other as friends. But there's one thing, Trump's people said the same about the Northern Ireland Protocol and the GFA. But with Trump, you never know how long this will last. With the US President Biden, Johnson would have to start from scratch when building relationships and should not expect as much understanding and accommodating as Trump does. In addition, it is to be expected that Biden as president will first try to regain the lost trust of Europeans, above all Germany and France, in the USA as a reliable partner. Support for the concerns of the British could very quickly become less important for a Biden government. Biden, as I said, once described Johnson as a physical and emotional Trump clone. That has to say something. The talks between a US President Biden and Johnson should not be easy under these conditions. But the Brexit talks had barely progressed so far, and London even left the negotiating table in the meantime. The parties did resume negotiations last week, with the British government justifying the decision with a speech by EU negotiator Michel Barnier. Barnier recognized important points for the UK, including respect for the sovereignty of Great Britain. They said, Barnier had previously offered London intensive negotiations in a speech in the European Parliament and said, I think an agreement is within reach if we are both willing to work constructively and in a spirit of compromise. You can have a look at this speech and many others in my full picture video that was a premiere last Sunday. It's still on my channel, of course. And Barnier added, our door will stay open until the last day when it being open is of any use. The talks had barely progressed before that, and London even left the negotiating table. As I said, But if a deal is not reached, tariffs and other trade barriers threaten. And the Brexit transition phase, in which practically everything has stayed the same, so no one has felt anything yet, will come to an end in around 2 months. Expert slump, inflation, bankruptcy wave. According to a study, a hard Brexit without a trade agreement with the EU would have many negative consequences for Great Britain, as I said in one of my last videos about this study. This is up to 15% of British exports to the EU at risk, threatening losses of almost 14 billion euros, according to the study by the credit insurer Euler Hermes. A tough exit in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic and the already difficult economic situation would hit the UK itself very hard, said the head of macroeconomics of the Euler Hermes group, Anna Boata. In the event of a hard exit, she expects another recession in the UK in the coming years, in which the GDP, the gross domestic product, is likely to collapse by 5%. And the rate of inflation is likely to be above the 5% mark, mainly due to the sharp rise in import prices of 15% and the devaluation of the British pound of 10% against the euro. The British would have to put significantly more money on the table in the future for shoes, hats or umbrellas, just as an example. Experts at Euler Hermes, or Euler Hermes as I call them, predict that the prices for these goods will rise by around 20%. Textiles, food and drinks, alcohol, tobacco and vinegar are also likely to cost significantly more. The British voters had voted in 2016 with a narrow majority to leave the EU. The UK then left the EU at the end of January, but is still a member of the EU internal market and the customs union during the transition period until the end of the year. Only then does the economic break really come, and only then you will feel the effects of Brexit. If no deal is reached, there is a risk of tariffs and other trade barriers, which, by the way, are much more damaging than the tariffs itself. And that would put a heavy burden on trade. But at the moment, what we hear about the current talks is that they are making progress. If they're intelligent this time, they won't bring anything to the outside until the papers are done, until the negotiations are done, and they are handing the papers and legal texts over to the parliaments to scrutinize them. But we will see. And if you now want to know more about European or global politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here in the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel, which I hope you already did. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!